In the most holy name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Dr. Muhammad, to whom our holy praises are forever due, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. And I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is his living and exalted Christ. I further bear witness that the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan is their divine reminder, the apostle of God in our midst today, and proof positive that Allah did not cease intervening in the affairs of the black man and woman in America in 1975. In their names, I greet you, family. Assalamu alaikum. I am happy to see you again. To all of those who preceded me, I gotta say, I've never seen that before, Brother Tariq. You took your bow tie completely off, put it back on perfectly. I was back there, I said, whoa, that's impressive. That was impressive. You know, I have kind of I guess they would call it a bow tie engram before the people. I would like to thank the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan for the opportunity to serve on his and the Nation of Islam's Executive Council. It is a profoundly humbling and weighty privilege to be associated with such an exalted assembly, as the minister likes to describe it, and I don't take it lightly, nor do I assume I deserve the privilege. 32 years ago, as a junior in high school, a teacher one day pushed play on a cassette recorder. And out from that cassette tape thundered a voice whose owner I did not know. I've never laid eyes on the owner of that voice. I had, therefore, no visual context to understand or process what I was hearing. But the voice was so powerful and so authoritative, as the words that echoed in that classroom on that day were this man asking what was clearly a huge audience, asking the question, who were the enemies of Jesus? He answered, the scribes, the Pharisees. Then he said, who are my enemies? The scribes and the Pharisees. Later, I discovered that I had heard an excerpt from that mighty Madison Square Garden 1985 lecture. But at that time, as a young 17-year-old boy living in a Christian household and encountering from a disembodied voice such black power and boldness as I had never heard before, I said in my head, wow, is this man comparing himself to Jesus? Never could I have imagined that 32 years later, I would be blessed to be among the circle of the disciples of that true Jesus indeed. Our subject today is how Allah, God, makes a new human being. I would like to open with an incident that I experienced that arguably black folks' second most important place, second to the church. that being Walmart. On one occasion at Walmart, I was checking out, and the cashier was a sister, and she wasn't friendly at all. The poor customer service made me get a little attitude, and I started talking bad about sister in my head, though. I was pushing sister around in my head, but while doing so, a thought came to me. Maybe Allah intervened in my thought process, but a light came on in my head, and I said, you know, black people have hard lives. The sister could very well have come to work at Walmart after having a bad or even traumatic experience, but her financial situation did not allow her to call off from work on that day. Or at the time she was serving or ill-serving me and being rude, she could have been minutes or maybe an hour away from clocking out and returning to a home situation that was traumatic. You know, white people tend to give at least decent service with a smile when they're not being racist buttholes. But that makes sense. Life for the average white person is blissful compared to life for the average black person. Every one of us in here has pain, disappointment, and even some measure of suffering in our life. And a lot of it really is unfathomable to most white people. Whites in North Chicago can't even begin to relate to black South and West Side Chicago life. The question that begs an answer is, why is black life so miserable? Our work life, miserable. Our marriages and relationships, miserable. Our children's life, miserable. Our health, miserable. As we speak right now, Black America is, by most metrics, in the midst of a bona fide health crisis. It's reported that around 40% of black men and 49% of black women have some form of heart disease, making Black America the world leader in cardiovascular and metabolic disease. We have a cancer crisis. According to the American Cancer Society, 1 of every 2 black men and 1 of every 3 black women will be diagnosed with some form of cancer in this lifetime. We are experiencing an autism epidemic, an obesity epidemic, a fertility crisis, and a gender bending crisis. Did you know that here in Chicagoland, life expectancy gap analyses indicate that a black child born and raised in South Chicago can expect to die 30 years sooner than a white child born and raised in North Chicago. 30-year life expectancy gap. And death by violence is only part of the cause. And if that is not enough, Black America is in the grip of a mental health crisis. Black people are significantly more likely to suffer prolonged, chronic, severe, and debilitating depression than whites and other Americans. Our teenagers are more likely to attempt suicide than white teenagers. All of us born Black in America suffer to one degree or another, in one form or another, a mental health problem. Every single one of us. This is why I heard the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan speaking to an association of Black psychologists and saying that every Black leader should have a psychologist with him or her. Because Black people, we are messed up in the head. The challenges of being Black male in America, the challenges of being Black female in America, the challenges of being a Black child, that being a preschooler doesn't protect you from being handcuffed and arrested by the police. But what is disheartening is that with all of our aches, all of our pains, and all of our misery, Black people go through daily life with no sense of urgency or outrage. We have normalized our misery and normalized our sickliness. What is more, we are totally oblivious to the source of our misery and illness in most cases. It could be said, with only a touch of humor to it, that the hood is haunted. Black people don't play with ghosts, right? We don't mess around with ghosts. We're kind of scary when it comes to that. That's why Candyman still got many of us spooked to this very day. But I wonder how many in here had an experience in your life that you believe was a paranormal, haunting experience. I have people in my family who swear by it. You were working late at your job or in your home office one day, or you were home alone one summer night, and all of a sudden you heard something, and out the corner of your eye, you saw something. A gray or shadowy figure you believe was a ghost. You know your mind wasn't playing tricks on you because you felt the presence. Your body got cold shivers. You felt the hair stand up on your neck. Maybe you got a headache and felt nauseous. You had a real experience that wasn't your imagination. The question is, what was your experience? Slide, please. The inner cities across this country are bombarded with what they call low-frequency sound waves. Due to their often undetectable nature and due to the physiological effect that they have on the human body and the brain, the U.S. military has been working on, or had been working on, weaponizing low-frequency sound waves for years as an instrument of sonic warfare. As it turns out, and not surprisingly, it is the areas where Black people concentrate that are most exposed to low-frequency sound waves. In fact, it is said that low-frequency waves are the common background noise in urban environments, as they are constantly emitted from road vehicles, industrial machinery, slow-moving vans, air conditioning units, heating and ventilation units. Slide, please. But there is a certain frequency, around 18 to 19 hertz, that under certain conditions can cause haunting effects by creating the sensory phenomenon mentioned above that are suggestive of a ghost or a poltergeist event. Y'all remember poltergeist? The feeling of a presence, the cold shivers, the hair prickling on the back of your neck. You can even see the ghost with your own eyes, because the eyeball vibrates at the same frequency of 18, 19 hertz. And when the sound wave frequency syncs with your eyeball frequency, at that moment, a shadowy or ghost-like apparition will appear in your eye. So while the effects of the sound, low-frequency sound waves are causing physiological disturbance in your body, the syncing of the sound wave with what they call the resonant frequency of your eye causes you and I to see a ghost. Scientists call this the ghost in the machine effect. So yes, there are ghosts haunting the hood. They even have found out how to lace our music with this fear frequency. They call this particular frequency the fear frequency of 18 to 19 hertz. And they found out how to secretly lace our music with this fear frequency. So yeah, there are ghosts haunting the hood. But this low frequency sound wave soaked environment does more than just spook black people by creating pseudo poltergeist experiences. It makes us physically ill. It keeps the level of our stress hormone cortisol chronically high, which produces aches and pain and high blood pressure and lowered immune function. So urban black America is poor, depressed, sickly, even haunted. But none of this has happened by accident. Slide, please. Almost every aspect of black neighborhoods has been weaponized against us. The food that we eat, the water that we drink, the air that we breathe, even the noise that we may or may not hear have all been made poisonous to us. But here is the important point. Our enemy, Satan, has targeted us. That's clear. But why? Satan has targeted us because God has chosen us. Chosen us for what? God has chosen the suffering black man and woman in America to be the raw material out of which God builds a new humanity. It's often said in both Christian circles and African spiritual conscious circles that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience. Have you heard that? While I can very much appreciate that thinking, the Most Honorable or the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan has given us, thank you, a higher understanding. And so the wording here must be tweaked in order to really be accurate, especially as it relates to Black people. We are not simply spiritual beings having a human experience. Rather, we are gods languishing in a human condition. Our current humanity is not simply an experience to be had. Our humanity is a condition to be overcome. In the beginning, in our original state of existence, our humanity complemented our divinity. This is why it can be said that the Black man is God. Humanity and divinity were wed to each other. However, after the fall of Black Adam, that first Adam, after his fall, our humanity became an impediment to our divinity. So much so, in fact, that our humanity has in America developed into devil. This is one of the reasons why the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad instructed his chief student, the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, stop saying a white man is the devil. Don't say that no more. He raised the ante, said, call him Satan. The enemy, the slave master's children. Don't use devil anymore because he knew that ultimately we were going to come face to face with the reality that we have been made devil by the devil. So within each of us, a war between God and Satan rages. Every single one of us in here. A war between God and Satan is raging. What does this have to do with the misery of Black life in America? And what does the misery of Black life in America have to do with God's design for a new humanity? We know from the Bible and from the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan that love is kind. Love is patient. Love is long-suffering. The Bible also tells us that God is love. Well, if God is love, and love is long-suffering, then God himself has an intimate relationship with suffering. In fact, it can be said that suffering, a certain kind or class of suffering, has a divine quality inherent within it. I will come back to that qualification, a certain kind or class of suffering. I'll come back to that in a minute. But you say, isn't that blasphemy? To say that God, who has power over all things and all people, suffers and is long suffering? No, it's not blasphemy. It's divine truth. God Most High is long-suffering. Is not 6 trillion years a long time? That is how long it took God, having given birth to himself out of the triple dark womb of space to self-evolve or self-create his organic person, stage by stage, level by level. A painful 6 trillion year process until God, the first human being, did you get that? God, the first human being, emerged in his glory. During this period of growth, and we can call it organic ascension, God suffered pain from the process, according to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And this established a universal law that there is no birth, no growth, no leveling up, no new human being without the experience of pain and suffering, even for God. Slide, please. The conditions which prevailed in the beginning, when God emerged as the first human being, those conditions now prevail among the black man and woman in America. That's not the one I want, the one with the black people. That one. The conditions which prevailed in the beginning, when God emerged as the first human being, those conditions now prevail among the black man and woman in America, from whom the new human being was prophesied and destined to emerge. The book of Genesis in the Bible opens with the words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was void and without form. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the deep." In the Hebrew text, behind the words of King James, void and without form is tahu vabohu. Tahu vabohu. That's the Hebrew translated void and without form. And this is an ancient Hebraic description of the raw conditions of some of the black matter or material substance which God used to build the universe and to build his own material body. In the Holy Quran, this primordial matter, if you will, is poetically described as black mud, from which Adam's body was made. After 464 years of developing in the womb of American white supremacy, slavery, suffering, and death, we, a once great African people, have been reduced to void and without form. To be voided, according to Merriam-Webster, is to have the inner part of something cut away and left vacant with a narrow border left at the sides. Having been kidnapped and brought to America in the holds of ships, our names, language, culture, religion, God, and identity were all stripped from us during the breaking process, a process necessary in order to transform a Muslim man and Muslim woman into a slave or a Negro. The inner self of the black man and woman have been cut out. We have been voided and are formed unmade. We now exist in the condition of tohu vabohu. of void and without form. The so-called Negro in America is but a shell of who and what he used to be. But this is the perfect set of conditions, allowing God to make a new human being. As it was in the beginning, so is it now in the end of this world. You, black man and woman, have suffered what no human population has ever had to endure in the last 6,000 years of human history. Nobody's suffering compares to yours, because you have been made to descend lower than any people ever have. You are poised to ascend higher than any people can. Why is that? What is the principle undergirding this? The principle is undeserved suffering is redemptive. I said above that there is a certain class of suffering that has a divine quality inherent within it. All of us suffer or have suffered or experienced pain and disappointment in our daily lives, but all suffering ain't created equal. The hierarchy of suffering. The hierarchy of suffering is laid out brilliantly and clearly in 1 Peter, 2nd chapter, 19 and 20th verse. It says, quote, "For it is commendable if a man endures pain of unjust suffering because he is conscious of God. But what glory is it if a man receives a beating for doing wrong and takes it patiently? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable to God." If we mess up and are made to bear the consequences of our wrong, and we suffer those consequences patiently, well, good for us. But ain't no glory in that. That's simple, mundane mathematics. Cause, effect. We can and should learn lessons from our mistakes, lessons that help make us better persons, but there is no crown for that. However, to endure unjust suffering while doing good, glory is in that. I would say that the misery of black life in America is the illegitimate and deformed child of these two. Our personal misery is a spawn of the unfortunate union between, on the one hand, redemptive suffering ordained by God, which we misperceive, and on the other hand, vain sufferings that we bring into our lives by our own hand, our own mouth, our own thinking. Vain suffering is the big that our willful decisions have prepared for us to lay in, while redemptive suffering prepares a crown of glory tailor-made for each of our heads to don. Any woman who has borne a child knows the goodness that emerges from suffering. The intense pain of labor is redeemed by the blessing of the child. a new human being who came through the portal of pain and suffering. It was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who so beautifully captured the scriptural truth in the words, "Undeserved suffering is redemptive." West Africans did nothing to white people to deserve the horrors of the Holocaust of slavery. But God willed that should happen. And redemption for this undeserved suffering is fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham, that his seed will be enslaved in a strange land for 400 years. But after that time, God will come to that people, judge their enslavers, bring the people out with great substance. Do you realize what that great substance is? For 66 trillion years, the earth was governed by a council, a true executive council indeed, a secret order of black gods who had in their hands the lordship of all of the worlds. And for 66 trillion years, these black lords derived from a single family or tribe from the east. But in the last days, the son of Islam would no longer rise from the east and shine on the west. Rather, the son of Islam is now rising from the west, and the divine rulers of the entire world is now and from henceforth derived from the black man and woman here in the hills of North America. After the power of white people is broken, the territories of the earth will need rulers. And your suffering at the hands of white people is the purchase price we have already paid to be Lord over the world, including Lord over white people, to the extent that there are any left on the earth. Redemption for our undeserved suffering is God's choice of us and our progeny to be the future rulers of the planet, breaking a 66 trillion year protocol. That's big. Just as black people as a collective are in a covenant with God that involves redemptive suffering, so too are we as individuals. Did you know that? And while the collective victory is guaranteed by God, black people will be victorious. That's a fact. You can take that to the bank. However, each of us as individuals have to work out our victory over death. And that, I suggest, is the source of much of our personal mental health issues. Because we don't properly perceive God's work in our personal life. The suffering that God ordains for his servants as a matter of universal, non-negotiable, natural law. Before we can ever get to the redemptive phase of the suffering, we abort or sabotage the process. And the difficulties in our life that should be redemptive for us later cause us to fall into bitterness and depression, They become self-destructive of us, causes us to take drugs to ease our pain, smoke weed to ease our pain, drink alcohol, eat obsessively, cause us to run from one man to another, from one woman to another, to ease our pain or escape the difficulty factor. We gorge ourselves on social painkillers. And instead of killing the pain, which we never do, these things are literally killing us and robbing us of our reward. But if we understand properly and perceive correctly the way God works in each and every one of our lives, we will not be subdued by our pain, but we will be empowered by it. We draw power from our undeserved suffering. When I was last blessed, to have an audience with the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, I shared with him a personal matter that had been the source of great difficulty and stress for me, and even, I guess, low-key started to subdue me. But when he said to me straight up that that's Allah's trial on you, that confirmation changed my whole perspective. So while before my shoulders started to droop under the stress, now my head lifted and my shoulders straightened. No longer subdued by the pain, I was and am empowered by it. Dr. King helped us to understand that there is a moral force inherent in undeserved suffering. Those of us battered by the storms of persecution, hatred, and even unwarranted personal injury in our dealings with others, we have the moral high ground in this world. And as such, we have the transformative and redemptive power of God and his Christ sustaining us and guaranteeing our vindication. Guaranteeing our vindication, so long as we don't abdicate. So long as we don't abdicate a moral high ground by returning evil for evil. You know, hurt people. But black people who have been and continue to be hurt by white people, we never return hurt to white people. Hurt black people only hurt black people. And this is why righteousness is so important in this day. For it is a guard against vain suffering. What is righteousness? It's obedience to God and treating others as you would want to be treated. That's righteousness. The rebel against God's mandates or against the guidance of God's apostle. To rebel against God or his apostle is to pile vain sufferings on our plate that we're gonna have to eat. And to treat your brother or your sister in ways that you will not appreciate being treated sets off a karmic reaction that eventually will visit us. And this contributes to so much of the misery and depression that characterizes black life in America. But our undeserved suffering is redemptive. And we channel, if we maintain the moral high ground and channel the force, the moral force inherent in undeserved suffering, then we can be transformed collectively and personally into the next level of humanity. In fact, this 400 years of suffering that Black people have endured at the hands of white people, the moral force that has accrued to us as a consequence, that's part of our drip as a people. That's part of our swagger, especially vis-a-vis white people. We should never be in the company of white people, head low, shoulders drooping. We should always be in the company of white people with that moral force empowering us, because we know that redemption is coming to us and retribution is coming to them. Slide, please. Go back to the Honorable Ms. Lewis Ferguson. Please do me a favor. Don't anticipate the command. Only when I say slide, please advance the slide. Yes, sir. The paradigm and model of redemptive suffering is Jesus, who illustrates that God exempts none of his servants from suffering, even his perfect or near perfect servants. Jesus the Christ and Jesus the Messiah are the key to the end of human suffering, because he is the agent through which divinity and humanity are finally reconciled and the new human being is born. But the end of suffering allows or follows on the heels of intense suffering. So the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan teaches us that it was at the cross that was Jesus's finest hour. The crucifixion, the suffering. That is what separated Jesus, the man of Thursday, and Jesus, the God of Easter Sunday. Slide, please. But the cross is a heavy stumbling block for us as individuals. Both witnessing Jesus' cross and also experiencing our own cross is a stumbling block for us. 1 Peter, that illustration of redemptive suffering, concludes with this. To this redemptive suffering, you were called because Christ suffered for you, leaving as an example, or leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. Jesus' cross or redemptive suffering is not just an example for us. The Greek word translated example is huagramos, which is to follow a piece of writing given to a beginner student. The scripts or the letters of the script of the writing to be copied and imitated by the student letter by letter. That's what a huagramos is. This is what the example of Jesus' suffering is described as a writing that students must copy and imitate, letter by letter. Slide, please. See, in the Nation of Islam, We refer to this Hu'ad Ramos as the Savior's letter, which begins the process of each Muslim to be student enrolled in the class of God. Each beginner, each new stand-up convert to the nation, each new processor to the Nation of Islam is expected to copy the letter perfectly, imitating the script. That means each individual letter must be imitated near perfectly, and our Savior's letter will be rejected. And we cannot begin the process of redemption because, family, the path to redemption for our 464 years of undeserved suffering, that path is the Nation of Islam. You and we must come through this portal, this womb, this mosque, in order to be refined and transformed into a new humanity. This is why I'm sorry, I respect all of us. I respect all black, let me not lie. I respect most black organizations, black leaders, people who are doing progressive things. I respect y'all. You have your place. And those who mimic the Nation of Islam, we are flattered. But be real clear, except you actually come through this. You have to come through this to qualify for redemptive suffering. Now, why do I say it? Am I set tripping? The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, in Pathology and Hypocrisy, he teaches us from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that Islam, when you come to this, when you write your letter, when you make that commitment to Master Farrakhan Muhammad, that initiates a process that will, by its nature, bring every single thing that's in you and me. It's gonna bring it out. The good, the bad, the ugly. This walk is going to bring all of it out of us by design. God is going to send, he's going to be the architect of circumstances of our life. Circumstances that are going to trip us up, are going to expose to us aspects of ourselves that we didn't know. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about Leviathan in the Bible. And the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan teaches us what Leviathan really is. Leviathan is this sea monster, this huge, nasty monster of the sea, according to the Bible. The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan helps us to understand that Leviathan represents the monster that's buried deep in each and every one of us. But because Leviathan is buried so deep, we never encounter it in our daily lives. So you know how the person you thought was a real good person, oh, she's so sweet. Oh, bro, cool. And then one day, you see ugly, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Or you look in the mirror and say, whoa, where did that come from? That came from God. The monster buried in each and every one of us has to be brought to the surface. The aim of Islam is to bring to the surface our beautiful and our ugly, so that we can build on our beautiful and kill our ugly, because the science of Leviathan, once Leviathan is exposed, we gotta kill it, or it will kill us by dominating our personality. So instead of having a moment, a moment of ugliness, we just become ugly. So yeah, there's ugly acting Muslims in the mosque. Yeah. Don't be dismayed by that. Don't assume that Islam failed in their case because Islam is supposed to be beautiful and peace, and maybe they are ugly and rancorous. That don't mean that Islam failed with them. It means Islam is working with them. They're just still in that, or we are just still in that ugly phase. So be patient with the process. But look, so I need to beg your indulgence. I have not been here for quite a while for one reason only. I let my brother, our great national assistant, to the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, I always tell him, don't put me on any rotation. I don't want to be on any rotation. I don't ever want to mount this roster, except I have something on my chest that I believe Allah gave me. So, Brother Minister Ishmael is always accommodating. When I call him, he puts it on the calendar. But if I don't call him, I expect not to be called for service at this roster. So, my presentation today is in 3 parts, if you will indulge your brother. Part 1, the sermonizing, the preaching. Part 2, the teaching. And then part 3, the wrap-up. See, when I come, I'm always very structured. I never shoot from the hip. I gotta, I always see the clock, but I don't pay much attention to the clock. Because I have a map that I want to end where I intend to end. Is that okay? So we about to go into phase 2. God not only wants to make us into new human beings, he wants to use us as the raw material. The tohu vabohu. I hope you seize on to that terminology. Void and formless. The tohu vabohu. He wants to use us as a raw material with which to make the new human being. He wants to evolve us into the next level of humanity. Question. If God is doing that mighty work among us, what work is Satan doing among us? Do you think God's longtime enemy, Satan, will not oppose God's will for us? Will not do everything in his power to subvert God's design for his chosen people? Chosen to replace Satan as the God of this world? The black man and woman as the new Adam is a threat to Satan. How would Satan respond? It was the great African Christian theologian of the 4th century, St. Augustine, who brilliantly referred to Satan as Simius Dei, which means the ape of God. Have you heard that before? The ape of God? To ape someone is to imitate or mimic their behavior or manner in an absurd or mocking way. Satan mocks God by mimicking God. He is called the great counterfeiter, who tries to subvert God's program for the people by offering a counterfeit version of the program. Everything God does, Satan follows with an evil, mocking imitation. God wants to use us to build a new humanity. Satan sat back and said, okay, watch what new thing I fabricate with this people. Wait till you see my new Adam. Slide, please. So our brother Malik Yoba has recently generated much discussion by coming out as what he called trans-attracted. He is attracted to transgender women who are males at birth who present as women or maybe are in the process of trying to physically transition to female. The mother of 2 of Brother Malik's children, Terry Vega, revealed that Malik is currently in a relationship with a transgender. Now, understand that we have no interest whatsoever in Malik Yoba's love life. It's totally immaterial to us. But I'm seeing something deeper in what I'm hearing. May I share what I'm hearing? On Sister Claudia Jordan's morning show of Dallas 105.7, Brother Malik Yoba indicated that his attraction to transgender women began when he was around 15 or 16 years old and saw a picture of a person that had both breasts and a penis. I'm not being vulgar. This is important. Brother Malik was later on the Judge Joe Brown show and discussed, quote, redesigning black masculinity. I don't know Brother Malik's associations or friendships. I don't charge Brother Malik with being a witting participant to the conspiratorial assault against black manhood and masculinity. However, Malik Yoba's public advocacy in this matter dovetails with a particular program that I think we need to know about. Slide, please. Members of the Jewish community are insanely angry at the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. Not because he is now or ever has been anti-Semitic. No, that's canard. They observed, or the Jews have reserved, a special place of hatred and condemnation for the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, because he is revealing to the world that while the white man in general is the devil, Satan, the Lord of devils, is a role played primarily by Jewish persons. Jews are the foremost beneficiaries of the wisdom that Moses brought to the cave-dwelling whites that were roped into the Caucasus Mountains 4,000 years ago. That wisdom included some of the forgotten trick knowledge that their father Yaqub had taught them. It included knowledge of who they are, of who God is. Some of the secrets of that Mosaic wisdom forms the basis of both the Talmudic learning of the Jewish rabbis, as well as the mystical theology and practices of the secret or esoteric tradition, Jewish tradition called Kabbalah. May I have the microphone, please? You say, what's that got to do with Malik? Yo, stay with your brother. The centerpiece of Jewish esoteric or secret learning, the centerpiece, a secret tradition that was brought to them by Moses, the prophet, when he raised them up from the caves and hillsides of Europe 4,000 years ago. The centerpiece of Satan's secret study is this right here. And do you know what this right here is? This is you right here. The centerpiece of Kabbalah is Adam Kadmon, the first Adam, Black Adam, who the Kabbalists identify rightly as God. But the Kabbalists study the Black God in his death. Adam Kadmon, the first Adam, the Black Adam, is represented by the tree of life in Jewish tradition. So when you see this symbol, the 10 Sephiroth, or the Jewish or Kabbalistic tree of life, you're looking at yourself. The process by which the Black God, Adam Kadmon, rose and then died is the preoccupation of Satan in his Kabbalistic study. But the point of Kabbalah is not for wise Jews to secretly study and contemplate the Black God. Kabbalah is what they call a theurgic discipline. Theurgy is spiritual magic, a set of ritual practices aimed at manipulating or changing the divine. This right here is the first or the oldest representation of a Kabbalist and the Jewish tree of life. What's important with this first representation, the tree of life is you. Whenever you see the Jewish tree of life, that's Adam Kadmon, that's the Black God having died. But notice this Jewish Kabbalist. He's not just speculating on Adam Cadman. He has his hand on Adam Cadman. He's manipulating Adam Cadman. He's doing something to the black God. What is he doing to the black God? This is a pictorial representation of what we read in our supreme wisdom. That technology that Moses taught whites, it included devilishment, telling lies, stealing, and how to master the original man. Kabbalah is the secret science of Jews on how to master the original man. Are you with me? Slide, please. Jewish possessors of this theurgic science, this spiritual magic of manipulating the body of God. These Jewish possessors are Simius Dei, the ape of God. And it is one act of mimicry in particular that defines Satan and is relevant to everything we have said so far this morning. One act of mimicking God defines Satan. The signature act of God that exalts him as God most high above all the gods is the act of creation. And the paramount act of his creation is the creation of man on day 6. Slide, please. Satan's haughtiest and most ambitious mimic performance is the manufacture of an artificial Adam. Go back to the previous slide, please. An artificial Adam, which the Jewish esoteric tradition calls a golem or golem. A human-like creature fashioned from black mud, just as the Quran says that Adam was made from black mud fashioned into shape. Masters of the Jewish esoteric and mystical magical traditions, they do not possess the power to create life as God has. However, they boast of having the secret knowledge behind the biblical story of creation of Adam and the ability to take a dead man and refashion him into something new and then animate him. Not dead literally. The Hebrew term golem suggests dead, formless matter, not unlike the tohu wabohu, or void and formless matter of earth in Genesis. Slide, please. Negro, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, means dead. The word Negro is Greek, derived from the root word necro, meaning dead. We were made the Negro, or dead people, when we were made void and without form within the crucible of the American institution of slavery. And just as the Spirit of God is moving on the face of the deep in order to make a new Adam. Slide, please. So too is Satan moving among us to fabricate his own version of a new Adam. What are the characteristics of Satan's new Adam? We'll get to that in a moment, but first, how do these Jewish sorcerers fabricate their refashioned Adam? Slide, please. Jewish tradition says that the golem is fabricated from black mud by means of linguistic magic or letter magic, consisting of the ritual use of combinations of the Hebrew letters, and specifically the letters of the divine names of God. According to the Jewish mysteries, the letters of the alphabet are the instrument God himself used to create the universe. Each letter is thus believed to possess a secret magical power. The power of creation, therefore, is in the secret knowledge of the right combination of the letters. Now, because I'm not a spooky dude, I had to ask myself, what really is linguistic magic? When we pierce the veil of religious language and symbolism, what combination of letters can manipulate organic existence in the way described in these traditions? And as soon as I asked, Allah gave me the answer. Slide, please. The Jewish sorcerers who most effectively manipulate black life happen to be chemists. Linguistic magic, the combination of letters allowing one to effectively manipulate organic existence. Mastery over the chemistry of life allows one to master the manipulation of life and life forms. Slide, please. And so in the tradition of the golem, they said that when they found the right combination of the letters, they wrote it on a paper and then put that paper in the mouth of the black golem. A combination of organic chemistry, the food that is being made available to black people. We are eating the linguistic magic of our enemy. The food of the black community, as we documented in our report. They wage war against us by zip code. If you eat in your neighborhood and you live in a black neighborhood, we are the golem in whose mouth the paper with the right combination of letters has been inserted. With the use of this letter magic. organic chemistry. Satanic scientists are able, slide please, to refashion Adam. And they are in no ways arbitrary in how they intend to refashion Adam. Y'all all right? Yes, sir. In fact, since the days of the writing of the Talmud, the Jewish rabbis describe how they intend to remake the original man. Adam Cadman, you, as original man, in his original state. Adam Cadman, as Gollum, refashioned by the Jewish scientists. Slide, please. In case you don't see the detail, this Adam Cadman is intersex. He has breasts and penis. And in the Talmud, they describe how this, or their intent as mimickers of God, how they intend with their linguistic magic, their organic chemistry, how they intend to create a new Adam with breasts and penis and intersex and hermaphrodite. We mentioned Leviathan. God will bring circumstances to our life that will disturb our emotions because the deep sea that Leviathan is lodged in represents our emotions. And if circumstances are rough enough to disturb our waters enough, get us emotional enough, that Leviathan will come up. But in God's design, the point of awakening each and every one of our Leviathan, the reason for bringing our monster out of us is so that we can kill the monster, not become the monster. But Satan is the ape of God. And Satan always inverts God's design. Did you know? These wicked scientists have created a chemical, the aim of which, when consumed, it helps us find our monster. The purpose being, once our monster is unleashed by the chemical, we become our monster. Did you know that? Slide, please. You know the chemical, though. You know the chemical well. We hear about it in damn near every song we listen to. Every rapper of some importance name drops that chemical. Whether we call it ecstasy, whether we call it Molly, that is the chemical that Jewish sorcerers created. MDMA, Molly. The Molly that has overtaken weed in hip-hop culture. That's the chemical that was artificially fabricated, slide please, by the Russian Jew, Alexander Shulgin. One more time, please. by the Russian Jew organic chemist, master of the linguistic magic. Alexander Shugin fabricated or synthesized the form of MDMA that is at the root of Mali culture. The drug that every rapper and his woman is popping, that's Alexander Shugin's chemical, designed to bring out the monster in us that we may become the monster. And so, but look, before it was called Mali, before it was called ecstasy, you know what the Jewish sorcerers called it when they released it into the public? Slide, please. They called it Adam. Why? Not Adam, the first man, but Adam, the androgynous or hermaphrodite. Because this drug was designed, he said, to androgynize its user, Adam. While cannabis was in fact created by God, it was, but manipulated by Satan. Mali is totally the fabrication of Satan. What is Mali? It's the linguistic magic of Jewish sorcerers used to master the original man. And this is why, slide please. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar. We have to cancel Mali rap. We're not going to cancel yet the Mali rappers. But from this point on, knowing now what is exposed of the origin and purpose of Mali, any rapper that name drops, anyone who promotes the popping of Mali, if you persist, you make yourself an enemy of your people. You make yourself a winning agent to the Jewish sorcerers and their attempt to master the original man. So as I wrap up my close up, there can be no doubt at all that there is an assault on black manhood and masculinity in this country, originating from the highest levels of society. But the assault is on the black man, the black woman, and the black child. God wants to grow all of us into a new humanity, and Satan wants to make mockery of God's desire to save us by making us into something that is unrecognizable as God's people. What's the solution? The solution has already been given, but of course our faith in the solution is weak. Slide, please. The single greatest threat to white supremacy is the black home. For it is the true hub of black power, the black home. It is not the black man as man that is the greatest threat to white supremacy. Rather, it is the black man in his role as father in a family that is white supremacy's fear. In the Nation of Islam, our hierarchy of values is God, family, nation. In that order. The nation is but a macro family, And a family is but a micronation. So in Islamic law, the severest penalties are reserved for those sins that violate family, such as adultery and fornication. You sliding in your brother's DM, your brother's wife's DM. What's your purpose, bruh? This is because family must be protected at all costs, lest the nation implode or self-destruct. The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan teaches us that it is marriage, family, and home that makes a nation great. And where there is a rupture in the marriage and the home, it is manifest in the national life of the people. And so if you are the enemy and you want to weaken the black nation, what do you target? Slide, please. He can't get to God. His arms are too short. He can get to the next best thing, though. Family. So the miserable condition of black America reflects the miserable state of black home life. We are very fickle when it comes to marriage. Out there and in here. And this is reflected in the excessively high divorce rates. At nearly every age, divorce rates are higher for black than for white women. Marriage is disincentivized or discouraged among us. And all through the hood, you see big divorce billboards. You want to get a divorce, you ain't got a lawyer. You just go outside your house and there's probably a number on your light pole. I posted recently on Instagram a clip from our sister Candace Owens. Some of her comments from the Revolt Summit 2019. Anybody see that? It's a great discourse. Killer Mike, T.I., Tamika Mallory, and others. And I posted a clip from Sister Candace Owens' comments. And I've never had the level of activity on my Instagram page that 3-minute clip generated. The anger and the hate for our sister was really interesting. Now, be real clear, I don't support everything Candace Williams is about. She wants black people to Blexit or black exit out of the Democratic Party. I'm with that. Y'all need to exit out of the Democratic Party. But it does us no good to enter into the Republican Party. Nor am I an advocate of, sister, you exiting from your black man into the waiting and conniving arms of a white man. So I don't support all of Sister Candace's positions, but she made some very important points that need to be lifted, and though they generated a whole bunch of back and forth on my page, her errant positions don't nullify the truth of what she said. She is correct that Black America's biggest problem, much bigger than the alt-right and neo-Nazis. It's the breakdown of the black family, particularly the removal of the father from the home. The father is not expendable, but we have been persuaded by society to believe that he is expendable. Children need to feed off of his presence and energy in the home as they grow up. His paternal energy makes a difference for the growth of that child that a strictly female-headed household cannot make. This is why I cannot support fully Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, their official program, envisions a village that has absolutely no place for the black father. They are determined by their own mission to totally destroy the nuclear family that has a place for the black father. And is it any surprise that Black Lives Matter and its program to erase the black father from the black village, that they are financed by George Soros, the billionaire Jew? In 2014, 70% of white children and roughly 59% of Hispanic children lived with both of their biological parents. Only a little more than 1/3 of our children were so fortunate. 2/3 of black children come up in households where they don't have the benefit of paternal presence or paternal energy. Sister Candace was right. The government has incentivized the absence of the black father from the black home, and black society has normalized, there's that word again. Black society has normalized the absence of the father from the home. Sister Candace makes the point, and she is right. Part of the cause of the breakdown of the black family is society's, white and black, society's hostility and mocking of black masculinity. We got to keep it real. And so even when brother is in the home, it's very difficult for him to exercise manhood or masculinity that isn't metrosexual in nature. Remember that term? Remember that phenomenon, the metrosexual? So the male may be in the home and he may be dad, but often he can't be father because many sisters have internalized being mother and father. That's a fact. So much so, oftentimes you refuse to surrender the hat that ain't yours. And so sisters mad at Fantasia now. Y'all heard Fantasia? Sisters mad at Fantasia now. I understand. She didn't lie though. Nor did her husband, Kendall Taylor. They both spoke Islam, if you want to know the truth. She said most women, I'm wrapping up. She said most women are trying to be the leader in the home. And a man can't tell them nothing because you trying to be the man. Is that what she said? Brother Kendall, her husband, said two his in the home rather than the man that's head and the woman that's neck. He said, two his are just a head butt. That's real, ain't it? Who can relate to that? But the Honorable Brother Mr. Farrakhan said that the dislodging of marriage as a cornerstone of family is causing the whole society to decline. For whenever the cornerstone of a building is removed, the stability of the building is in jeopardy. Where there are no successful marriages, he says, there is no strong nation. If the nation is weak, is our commitment to strong marriages weak? We will never be victorious on the battlefield until we start winning in marriages. Why? God requires the black family in order to produce the new humanity. God requires the black family in order to produce the new humanity. You can and should get the proper training into manhood from your men's class on Monday. But you're not going to be made a man in your men's class on Monday. You made a man in the home. You're not going to be made a woman Saturday morning. You made a woman in the home. The home is the incubator of black manhood, black womanhood. And so, that's how God makes the new humanity. Assalamu alaikum, family.
All praise is due to Allah. Brothers and sisters, were we spiritually fed this morning? Do we have some active items and agenda that we can implement this week to change the condition of our reality? All right, brothers and sisters, please take your seats for a brief moment. Brother Student Minister Dr. Wesley Muhammad has a few questions for you. Just hang tight.
I'm honored, family, by your presence. Who, by show of hands, are here for your first, second, or third time? I see my brother out there. Y'all like my haircut? That's the one that hooked me up, brother out there. May I see your hands again? Here for your first, second, or third time? Praise belongs to Allah. We appreciate you. We don't take the time you have given us for granted. We don't take it lightly. Who of you are here for your first, second, or third time and believe that what you heard today, what you experienced today was true and good for black people? Can I see your hands? You believe that what you heard today was true? You believe that? And good for black people? Praise belongs to Allah. With that being said, who believes what you heard today to be true and is good for black people, how many are willing today to stand on that truth, to activate on that truth, and to come home and join your Nation of Islam? May I see your hands, those who are ready to enter the path of redemption for your 400 years of undeserved suffering? May I see your hands? Praise belongs to Allah. May I shake your hand? Those who will be joining us.
Let's give our brothers and sisters a round of applause. Brothers and sisters, this is your opportunity to come down the center aisle and accept your Nation of Islam. Come on, brothers and sisters, I know we can do better than that. Let's give them some love. This is the first step of making an intelligent decision so that we can become better versions of ourselves. All praise is due to Allah, brothers. All praise is due to Allah, sisters. If you're still wrestling with that decision in your seat, this is your time. This is your moment. Each and every person that you see around this mosque has had to make this decision. We've had to take this walk. And we personally bear witness that this is the best decision that we've ever made in our entire lives. All praise is due to Allah. Brothers and sisters, one more time for Student Minister, Dr. Wesley Muhammad.